You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, the Podcast Mogul Phil Better, and today I'm happy to have politician turned digital entrepreneur, Mr. Sam George. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we were talking before a bit about your history, how you went from being a political space communicator and handling that and running for a few different types of office, and then you wrote a book and you're in the digital communications world. I'm super excited to have you explain it more. So Sam, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to my audience. So just take a few moments and let them know who you are.
Well, my name is Sam George. It wasn't always, but it is now. Just like Phil Better. But in any case, my name is Sam George. And for most of my life, from 18 all the way to about 50, I was very engaged in American politics at a very high level. I worked with Nancy Pelosi, who currently is the Speaker of the House. I worked with George Soros on a very important ballot measure to legalize marijuana. It was a big, big thing that passed in 20 states, starting out with a very important strategy. My focus was messaging, I was not like a politician, but behind the scenes. And then I think when I was in my late 40s, I'd always even though my job was completely behind the scenes, I decided, I want to run for office. I always wanted to do that. That's why I got involved. And after it, I came very close. I went to recount. But what was amazing is I really had a sad moment because I decided I just didn't want to do this. I mean, can you imagine having your dream? And granted, you didn't realize your dream, but you came within a few votes and decided I want nothing to do with this process. As a matter of fact, at the time, I just became cynical. I created a yoga company focused on medical yoga. And then I took my political activity into the ideas atmospheres and created 2 nonprofits that focus on the process of how we elect the president. Currently in America, we have an electoral college. There's a middleman. So your vote doesn't count directly. In fact, the disparity is unbelievable. And so it's to reform that process and then a sister organization for that. I had to raise money in order to sustain those organizations. And as it turned out, the biggest piece of my medical yoga company was digital. So I in the last 10 years, I've become very much a digital entrepreneur.
There you go. And you also recently wrote a book, which you talk about how to properly communicate, how to send your message out there in the right way, correct?
Yes. I mean, the name of my book is I'll Get Back to You. the Dyscommunication Crisis. Why people don't return your emails, your messages, and why does it drive you crazy? And really at the center point of this book, although there is a broader frame that speaks to what you say, we probably all have had this experience. In fact, I've done quantitative research to show that 70% do have it on a fairly regular basis, where someone has not returned our email or text. It happens more frequently in digital space. And after a while, we kind of get worried, anxiety and agitation. At a certain point, we decide this could be like 7 hours or 6 hours that we go into this. The second stage, and these are stages that have been verified by polling. The second stage is you decide something's wrong. Why? This has happened many, many times. You caught up with the person. They said, oh, yeah. So you've had this experience before. You know it was BS, but yeah, you do it again. And so you say, oh, something's wrong. And what's wrong usually has something to do with what you did. Somehow it's orienting about there are situations where, but mainly it's about you. And here is the big jump. We jump to the worst case scenario, the absolute worst case scenario. Now, I want to keep this important because we don't just go negative, because let's say you had 3 different versions of negative and you 3 different versions of positive. No. We jump to worst case. And it absolutely is insufficient. As much as we try and tell ourselves, we keep catastrophizing. It's like a negative loop that keeps on coming back. And as much as we want to tell ourselves, well, they were busy, blah, 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 boom, here comes in our negative thought cycle. So the book tells a little bit of it. So this happens as a result of our Dyscommunication crisis, as well as there's a psychological mechanism that is at play. And then I tell people, using my knowledge from digital communication, of ways that they can get their messages returned more quickly, that the communication will be understood, because that's vital. I mean, think about it. None of us, we haven't had a course. Nobody has a course in how to write an email or how to communicate through Instagram or text message. We're just a bunch of idiots. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's very really true. Amazing. And of course, unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, whatever you want to look at it. But I will point out that the digital age obviously has brought some amazing things, but it has done harm to our communication and to our well-being. And it's important to understand both, like yin and yang, So I'm here to talk about the yang side of it. You talk about the positive a lot on your show. So that's kind of that's kind of me, and that's what I'm doing.
I love it. And I can't wait to pick up your book, because I want to know how my emails can be, or my communications can be open, and why I always jump to the negative, because the same thing, like, it's in all parts of your life. It's not just like in work. It's also in like your personal life. Because I know when I'm texting a girl and she doesn't text me back, she doesn't like me, or all that crazy stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, but here, I mean, this is an important thing. I bet, Phil, I'm the first person who talked about this like as a concept, right? Yeah. I don't think it's talked about anywhere. I couldn't find anywhere. You know what I mean? Now there are, the only time it's been brought up to me is about females whose girlfriend, I mean, men doesn't talk, I'm sure men go through it like you said, but they're all into whether or not he's, if he's not into me and stuff, but they don't go into the full catastrophic, mode, or nor do they look at it conceptually. So this is the concept. Here we have something that causes us, especially in the digital age, constant anxiety. And even if you don't go in this full-blown boom, dyscommunication syndrome, is what I call it. We're always got emails out there, and we're always wondering, I mean, what happened? Did they understand? That's a big issue. Before you go. This is the thing where you freak out, but many times in a much shorter version, you're concerned that did I come through, which really highlights another problem. But what we have today is not communication. Digital communication, by definition, is dyscommunication. And that's because communication has a direct feedback. I mean, talking about interpersonal communication, it's defined in the dictionary. Conversation means this. It means direct feedback, like we're having right now. It's kind of an abstract concept, but it means talking directly to somebody where they talk directly back at you. Okay.
Yeah. I see how you're talking. I hear your voice. I have enough.
Right. But the important thing
communication is more than just
or whatever, there's an immediacy, right? But with digital, it's always delayed. And that's the problem. That's why it's not communication. First of all, when we talk about community, we're talking about interpersonal communication. We're not talking about, books or smoke signals and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But since the beginning, it's actually before civilization, before our civilization, two different iterations before us of ancestors. Talk is it. That's what defines us. I mean, there could be no home, that's what makes us human. And there would be no civilization without it. And it wasn't until about 1990, for the first time, that people communicated interpersonally, again, through the system that didn't have a direct link. Phone conversations are no different than this, no different. They're direct feedback but email, you don't know. Okay. So like, even when you write the email, what I was saying about not being understood, you're concerned about, well, is this, can I use this word? Can I do this? If I mention her, you know what I'm saying? So, oh no, the fact that there's not immediate feedback, everybody talks about the technology. Oh, digital, this and that is the tech. No, the technology is the same as it was before. Phone. 80% of the people opened up their emails by phone and 100% text messages. So we're using the same technology. So just take that, out of your minds. And we're actually, the phone technology itself is digital today. So, you know what I mean? We don't use phone lines. So essentially, it's not that. It's this feedback loop, a broken feedback loop. It really is at the essence, and it's an abstract concept, but it really penetrates to the core of the problem.
Jeez, so much to take away from this. I'm so looking forward to reading your book and upping my intelligence in that. But what was the spark that made you say, hey, I need to talk about this, write this book? Like, what was that spark for you?
I was doing some research. I wrote a book in 2004. I co-authored a big book about American politics called The Great Divide, Metro versus Retro America. It not only was it the first book that really went in depth historically, economically, people talked about red and blue states, but really, understood it theoretically. But also we realized that there's a culture war here. It's a full-blown war. And it wasn't until, till the last 5 years or 10, it wasn't until especially the advent of Trump where this became a war. I mean, literally, look at the Capitol in January. That's war. You know what I mean? So so that was a book I did. But, like I said, I've been trying to evolve out of politics. The last thing I wanted to do was write a book about politics, but I wanted to write another book. And I was doing a lot of research about fear. It seemed to me that this notion that our fears are based on ancient things, fight or flight, that seemed to me didn't seem right. You know what I mean? So I was and I thought, I came across this on my horizon, because it's, I said, I'm going to write a book about this. And in writing the book, I realized that, okay, I can explain it, but I need a theoretical framework. So I did a lot of polling, because polling is very important. This book, its theory, was developed as a result of, I didn't know. I mean, I couldn't break it down to these stages. And so I use my political research skills. And so it's one of the few like self-help or self-improvement books where it actually has research to support everything I say. So all those stages are things that 70% of the people have. I did interviews as well and flushed this out. So then, I presented the book. I had background in digital communication to credentialize myself in terms of the book and to also give the answers. So that's how I got to write a book about why people don't return messages and what are the weaknesses of digital communications. And like I said, I mean, there are great things and there are bad things, but I think people talk a lot about the great things and they vaguely know about the bad things, but they don't really understand it. And so that really is a primary focus. It doesn't exclude the other half.
Yeah, no, I think the reason why they don't talk about the bad is because they don't know about the bad. And you're going in depth here in your book. Now, I do want to, we're going to jump a little off the topic of the book because I'm interested how you segued your political, you left the politics and you opened up your yoga practice.
Well, my yoga company is medical yoga. I had a back issue. And right after I ran for office in law, a yoga teacher who was suffering from a terminal disease, and she said yoga is the only way keeping me alive. She was brilliant. She owned a hot yoga. So I tried hot yoga. The next day I was scheduled for a surgery intake for my back. And I didn't go. I went to the intake and told them I wasn't interested. You should have seen, looked at me. I just walked right out. You know what I mean? I just told the doctor I'm not interested. And through yoga, what was a surgery became a non-event. And I developed a form of informing. So I did some research, and there is a lot of evidence-based literature studies that show the medical efficacy of yoga. Well, the world is not ready for medical yoga yet. I tried, a number of different ways, insurance companies, but what took was teaching teachers. We would develop classes about medical yoga and then teach teachers, the knowledge as well as the series online. So that's how my medical yoga. Now in politics, what I did is I wanted to get out of the war of politics, but I still was concerned with issues. Well, I formed 2 nonprofit organizations and I got some money, a grant to get started, but I had this dilemma. How do I sustain it? So I had done work in grassroots advocacy for about 10 years before, where you get people to write their congressmen and stuff like that through email campaigns like that. And so I just learned how to do it. I hired a guy for about 3 months and realized that, hey, I can do this as well as he can. I can do this very well. So, but he taught me the ropes and I thanked him and left. And now, a big chunk of my income is from running these nonprofits and the money that I generate in terms of fundraising. It's also a way that my business keeps, I make a lot of profit there, but keeps afloat till I can take it on a bigger stage and attract capital. So that's my story, but I do digital stuff every day. I write. I like to do my own copy because I'm a messaging person. I write at least 6 or 7 emails every week.
Wow.
Every week, different ones. All different, different emails, and use different strategies and things of that nature. And so when it comes to the solution section of the book, okay, it comes down to that. Then I use my my background. But the reason why you need prescriptions is because, like you said, this happens to us. It happens to me, and I wrote the book, right? So it's important. The awareness is huge. Okay? That's the first mission. But what I found in researching it, I was working with a biological psychiatrist who founded the first biological institute of psychiatry. He knew the application of neuroscience to psychology. And it was through my work with him that I realized the role of pattern recognition, as it has to do with the brain thinks in patterns. So it's constantly trying to complete a loop, whether it's an argument or a story. That's why we like stories. It's why we want closure. We want to complete the loop. Okay. Call it explanation. We're constantly want to complete the loop. Well, our brain's forcing us to do that. And it's very powerful. If you hear a few notes
of a song,
or it will trigger the whole pattern.
And it gets stuck in your head.
That's because our brain stores pattern. And what happens here, and this is what I figured out, is that traditionally in this kind of an atmosphere, right, there's no need, the loop is closed. You say something, I respond, there's no need for the brain to fill the loop in. Mm-hmm. But when the void is there, when there's no answer on the other end, well, it wants to complete the communication of the loop, and it can't. It literally forces us unconsciously to jump to the worst case scenario. And that's what I wanted to point out. It's not just the negativeness, and it's not even based on fear. This doesn't have to do with fear. It has to do with the most advanced part of your brain, the neocortex, that creates these loops, that fills in this pattern recognition. And that's what's going on. And I must say, it happens in other aspects of your life that are not digital. Someone's late. Where do we go? Accident. Terrible. Something bad happened. You know what I mean? Like clock, within a second. Now, 99% of the time, nothing happens, but that doesn't stop you from jumping there. Ever heard back about like a decision, your boss hasn't got back to you? You send them a text, it's been a day, maybe over a day. Oh, I'm fired. Now, this is not here, all of these books about self-help books, because of lack of self-esteem, all that stuff. Well, they may be relevant for the longer term negative loop thinking, you know what I mean? People have attitudes, et cetera. But in the short term, no, it doesn't matter if you're confident. It doesn't matter if you're self-actualized. You can have perfect self-esteem. If someone doesn't complete the loop with you, you'll go to a worst case scenario. And so this is really the origin of a lot of our negative. Once you jump there, the cycle is going to be catastrophizing, right?
Yeah. Your brain just runs.
Way to go.
Your brain just runs through the loops.
Since the brain is, so that's, the brain is temporarily satiated by the worst case scenario, but it's the beginning of the end for us. It's the end for that. So that was that's an important thing. So that dynamic exists. So you have to find a way to sort of prevent the problem, right? To communicate so that this is an issue, so that people have as close as possible to immediate feedback and the kind of understanding that we have right now, where you can clarify. I mean, direct communication, Jesus Christ. I mean, it would take, well, first of all, you couldn't do this podcast with text messages.
No.
I mean, you couldn't do it through email. It would take thousands of emails and texts to do it. This is something I wanted to point, is not only do these emails, it's not just miscommunication. I mean, direct communication like here is like an ocean. Mm-hmm. I mean, emails are like, yes, no. I mean, it's not even a pond. It's like a puddle. I mean, then, and the level of creativity, the level of connection, people constantly refer to, oh, we had a good conversation. Very few times people say I have a bad conversation, because they felt heard, there was connection, but most importantly, there was closure. Whether you agree or disagree, it's closure. And there's also this other thing that the brain releases serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone. So that's another aspect. You ever have a good conversation and then you talk to another person, they're like, you're all jacked up, and they're like, what's up with you? Do you take drugs? No,
That's my
Had a good
Tuesday and
conversation.
Wednesdays. Those are my Tuesday, Wednesdays where I get to interview people.
So essentially, you see the problem. So this emasculates. This shrinks our ability. And emails and text and other digital, formats have become the dominant form of communication. And that, it's not like they're the bad guy. We don't want to talk by phone. Oh my God, people under 30, lots of luck getting them on a phone. I mean, because I've talked to some younger demographic things and I said, well, it's important to talk on the phone. Why talk on the phone?
It's a struggle.
My boyfriend doesn't want to talk on the phone. He refuses. So yes, we've changed. We're lazy. I mean, that's basically it. We're lazy, but we've lost so much. We're losing so much in the process. And as this continues, it's not just communication. It will continue to shrink what it means to be human.
Interesting. I'm just I'm enthralled. I'm speechless because as you're talking, I'm going back through my life in this in communication with digitally, and I'm like, well, that explains that. This makes a lot more sense. Okay, I just go through my life and I'm like just clocking these moments where I have sent that email and I didn't get the immediate back because I know how quickly you get an email. Like the email is like lickety split. So why haven't you responded to me? And then it goes to the worst case scenario. And it's done that constantly. And
it happens to all of us. Happens with free sequence. And even if you don't go into the full cycle, you're worried. Okay. Yeah, you're wondering, you're worried. We always have emails we're thinking about. Oh yeah. We're always thinking about emails, right? Messages that would be sent. When will they get back? A lot of times we wonder, this is a big issue, and the solutions seek to address, all of these things.
Because I remember when I was younger, I used to have a pen pal. I would write them a letter. I would never be worried about why haven't they written me back yet? Because I know the mail takes so long to get there and then they have to write it and send it back. So there was no anxiety.
Well, it's not a conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a conversation, right? It's there. A mail is not a conversation, right? This is a conversation, at least but technically by both Oxford University, Merriam, and they haven't even amended the dictionary after all these years. Digital communication, a digital conversation does not exist. It doesn't meet the, although Google calls them digital conversations, but they're not conversations. And so, but there is a structural difference. There is a difference expectation but it's also not a conversation. Conversation is like, boom.
Yeah.
Conversation is immediate feedback. So yes, the world has changed. Listen, some of this stuff happened, for example, before emails and text, you get a voice message. Oh, a lot of the same kinds of things happen, and they still do today. If you drop somebody a phone call and they don't get back to you, you can have a very similar experience. But, the thrust of it now is emails and texts. There's so many. And by definition, they're unreturned calls. Every email is an unreturned call. You know what I mean? Yeah. Until it gets returned, right? So, but it has that effect. Can you imagine a billion unreturned calls? So, and then two, an unreturned call technically is an invitation to a conversation, not but in any case, yes, you can have this, as I discussed earlier, you can have this if your son is late and you've texted him, you're a mother 3 times. Oh my God, he's dead. I should have never let him go out in the curfew. I'm a terrible parent. It's not unique to just digital life. This pattern of the brain is this what you call dyscommunication pattern syndrome applies well beyond this. We can't, and it's important to note that it's important to note both in the areas of when somebody doesn't return your communication, or whenever you find yourself jumping to a negative conclusion, to sit back and tell yourself that what's happening here in most cases is that your brain is kind of pushing you into this, you know, and it's important to have that awareness, even if then you just go on to catastrophize more. But it is, but so I developed ways. So what's the answer? How do we deal with the dyscommunication crisis? Well, the intent of the book was to deal with the unreturned message, but the prescription, the analysis became much broader, and so the prescription can be good. So the only way people are not going to quit using emails and text, so is to make those communications as clear as possible and return as quickly as possible, because it's the gap that causes the problem. And that's where I brought in, digital communication. Like I said, we don't go to school for emails and text. When we go to school to learn how to write, it's for composition, like essays or stuff like that. These emails and texts are not usually compositions. And so essentially we have no training. Sometimes we take classes about public speaking. Primarily, most of us learn through decades of experience how to speak publicly, how to speak clearly. And, not everybody does, but the thing is, we've had no training, no education whatsoever. We're sending out these emails. We don't know how to get people to open them. We don't know how to get people to read them. There's so much shit. We don't know anything about how to write an email, how to get it returned, to make sure that it's read. And I can I'll if you like, I'll tell you what those procedures are in my book.
Well, I want one or two, because I don't want you.
I'll just give you. There's two chapters. I'll give you three basic ones.
All right, let's go with the three basics.
With emails, okay. Don't put a subject line. That's the subject. That's the worst thing you can do. Put something. In digital marketing, we come up with, your prescription has expired, or talk to you in 5 hours. These are tricky subject lines, but they're designed to get somebody to open the emails. And it's very important. If they don't open the emails, they're not going to buy your product or contribute to your cause. But the same is true with people. People see these emails coming in. We can't open them all. You know what I mean? We do see them often. We're on our phone, or, it's not like we're in Bermuda where there's no internet or whatever. And, so essentially we see these, but we don't open them. The biggest reason, there are two reasons why messages don't get returned. They get lost because with just so many, your pane has about 20 emails. And then secondly, people see them, file them, plan to get back, and don't. Mm-hmm. And whether they get back late or whether they don't get back at all, your brain is still spinning, right? So that's the problem. That is a problem. So the first thing to do is you want them to immediately open, because they'll see it. And so if I put to Paul a thing that says meeting, well, that's easy to file, right? So rather than having people create, these go up and look at all these subject lines that marketers use, I have a simpler formula. Just tell me the first word, not in terms of this conversation, just first word that jumps in your mind.
Red.
Right? Okay. Right? Like W-R-I-T or R-I-G-T?
Red, like the color.
Oh, red.
Yeah, like Mickey Mouse's
pants,
just
red. Basically put red in the subject line. That will get somebody to open up your subject. It's a, you know what I mean? It's
curiosity.
It's curiosity, right? Okay, red. What is Paul calling me about red? What the fuck is this about? So you open it up, right? We got a zillion things coming in, right? We have to prioritize what we open, okay? And so once they open the email, the open rate, even for friends and everything and all, is about 35-40% of open rate. That's what the percent. There's less than a 50-50 chance that the email you send will be opened. And so, that's what you have to do, is you have to get them to open it on the spot. If they file it, they're probably going to forget, or you'll get a late response. The window pane only shows 20 emails, or so. So, it's real easy to make a note in your head and forget, short-term memory. So the subject line is vital. You have to use the first word that comes to your mind, anything, any word. You don't have to be cute, okay? You just have to come up with some, just something that's not normal. And believe me, people get so much crap. Nobody will ever say, hey, Phil, why'd you use that word red? They'll open it, right? And they'll read your message. And so that's the first thing. And then also, because people want to complete the loop, they're highly likely to return your message on the spot. We want to complete the loop. We know this in digital fundraising. They're going to either make the purchase or contribute. They don't go back to their email and do that. And same thing in life, back to this loop. The second thing is people. This is as big of a problem as the subject line. People not opening it. People scan emails. They scan them. They don't read them. They scan them. And they scan them, and they scan them. They don't get what you're understanding. They miss things. They file it. So how do you get them to read your email? Nobody reads their emails. I mean, I don't know anybody that reads their emails like they would read a magazine article or a book. You don't read your emails. You scan them. You have to. So how do you get someone to read your email? Well, you simply put their first name in as much as possible. Phil, how do you feel like if you're, you have a common friend with someone and you see them, periodically a lot, like at your parties and stuff, and they know you and you know their name and all that, but you're at a function and it's pretty clear that they don't remember your name. It doesn't make us feel too good, right?
No.
But if we go to the grocery store and a clerk who we haven't seen in months says, hey, Phil, we feel great. So this is a well-known thing and it's in every book, but it works. If every salesman knows this trick too. And it's not, it validates, but the most important purpose here is we're not trying to compliment, just use it to keep them tuned in. So use it at least 3 times in a text conversation or an email. Start out, dear Sam. Same with the text. People never do it there, especially dear Sam. Then I'll use the case of an email. Text conversation is more complex. Okay, you're writing an email for a purpose. Reduce the purpose. So you're going to, so basically the name will be used. So it's not 1, dear Sam. 2, we'll talk about later, at the point of action that you're going to ask them for. Sam, comma, boom. And then signing off. Very easy. Thanks, Sam. This makes it real easy. You don't have to figure out ways to say their name. It's very simple. Okay?
Mind blowing. I can't wait to get your book.
That'll keep them tuned in. Sam at the beginning, Sam in the middle. Believe me, addressing someone particularly, especially in the first, means all the roles. I always say, Jane, it's so important to do that. And we don't, and we never do it with text. Okay, that keeps them tuned in. Now, the second component is always reduce. I get emails all the time. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're asking me to do. I really don't. Sometimes I don't even understand what they're saying. And how am I going to respond? That's a good reason to say, okay, I'll get back to this, and we know what happens. You get back to it, you forget, or you delete. So it's very easy. You obviously want to keep the email succinct, short, succinct. Always ask a question. Always. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever the purpose is, convert it to a question. Always ask a question. Make the question be the centerpiece of the email, and use the first name before you ask the question. And the reason why is that therefore you're asking for a response. Do you know so many people, they send their friend a text and goes, hey, how's it going on Thursday night? And Friday, 3:00, they're freaking out. What the fuck? He doesn't make you text back. Well, you didn't even ask for a response. This happens with the text message all the time. So you're asking for a very clear response. And here's what's even more important. Don't keep it open-ended. People are timid. They want to say, what do you think? Or I need your input. No, it's yes, no. I mean, you want to say yes, no. Okay, we plan on having this event at this time. Do you agree or disagree? You know what I mean? You want to make it, because it's what's known as a limit situation. Yes, no, either or. Now, obviously, you have to be somewhat craft here, but you want to make the response one way or the other, because essentially, if it's, what do you think? Well, that's just an invitation to delay and them not responding to you. So the second thing is you always put a question. Another thing is don't put more than 2 points in an email. Make it 1 point, third. And then finally, follow up. People are timid. My polling suggests that people over 50% are uncomfortable with sending up an email afterwards. But the same research shows that 75% would welcome the reminder, okay? And we don't do that. So here's how you follow up. You can, but it's a mistake. The reason people don't follow up is they don't want to put people on the spot. There's other reasons too. But yet when they do follow up, they do just that. They forward an email with the email. Well, when you forward an email, that's just something you should avoid anyways. You're going to, but just not to get into the whole book. But essentially, why didn't you get my email? Or, I wrote you and you didn't, and nothing like that. It's very simple because they didn't see it. They didn't see it, or they saw it, they didn't read it. You just edit, copy, paste in the new email, and come up with a new color, like purple. Just come up with a new subject line and send it off. And I do that twice, and in 24 hours, you'll feel a lot better. You will get a response. You always do. You have to remember that in all these cases, almost always we catch up with a person. There's a totally rational reason for this. But meanwhile, we put through our minds, through all this catastrophe. This creates a lot of noise in our life. This kind of catastrophizing in others, again, and so that's simple. Use a creative subject line, a non-traditional. Don't put the subject in the subject line. If anything, put nothing, but don't ever put the subject in the subject line. Under extreme cases with, but even then, believe me, no one's going to care. Okay. In terms of threading, the email clients do that for you, right? Then it doesn't matter what you put in the subject line, they'll thread it as a conversation. And so that's it. Ask a question, use a person's name at least 3 times, and follow up.
Jeez, these are like 100. What's funny is I have people who come up to me. They're like, Phil, how do I get more people on my shows? And I'm like, I'm just going to clip this last bit we just talked about. I'm like, just listen to this, because Sam just like broke down the easiest ways to get more people on your show.
It's really funny too. I've talked to marketing groups and stuff, and they send newsletters and blah, blah, blah. They're not going to read a newsletter, you know what I'm saying? Unless. Yeah, don't be sending this crap, right? Send stuff that needs a response, right? Or at least ask a response, because at least they'll think about it. Use their name a lot, make it personal, and just don't send a lot of BS, And then absolutely ask them whether or not they want to be on the show. Don't skirt around it. Yes, no. When I send a press release, or when my consultant sends a press release, I tell them to put in there at the end. Do you want, not whether you'd like to talk to Sam, but will you talk to Sam? Yes, no. Or will it be on your podcast? Yes, no. I don't, you know what I mean?
It worked on me. I got that email. I'm like, yes, I want Sam on my show.
Yeah, the last thing people would do in a press release, a publicist will tell you, if you're like to talk to Sam, blah, blah. No. Do you want to write an art? Yes, no. Do you want to? Yeah, are you interested in potential? Or, yeah, yes, no. It's just that you don't
breaking it down,
and it's easy, but it will get them to focus. Mm-hmm. Whereas these things like general things you tail off, like what do you think, or these things like that doesn't say anything, and the person is just a waste of verbiage.
Awesome. Sam, I want to thank you. It's one of my longer episodes. I don't mind it because you were just dropping knowledge.
Well, you can edit it.
No, I'm keeping everything in because it's been pure gold this whole episode.
Oh,
I'm going to jump off the screen, Sam. I'm going to give you a chance to let my audience know where they can find you, how they can connect with you. So if they want to buy your book or if they want to talk to you more about how to get miscommunication back into the proper form so that they don't deal with this. So Sam, the floor is yours. Let us know where we can follow you and get in touch with you.
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with me is to call me or to email me. My telephone number is 310-351-6735. The best way is to just text me at that number. But if you're interested in the book, just go to Google, put "I'll get back to you." That's a pretty familiar phrase. And put George. That's it. Remember Curious George? Right? Curious, George, like in Curious George, and that's it. Just put it Google that, and that'll take you to the hyperlink. And I have a website and all that, but Dyscommunication.com. But if you're interested in more background, Dyscommunication.com, DYS, like dysfunctionalcommunication.com. But I really encourage you to take a look at the book, and I really encourage you to, if you go to the Amazon site, you can get the gist of what's being said, even if you don't, the website per se. But you can make a difference here. You really can. You can improve your personal relationships, and you can improve your relationships with your colleagues at work and in your own marketing and clients.
Awesome. Sam, I want to thank you so much for being an amazing guest and sharing your knowledge with us. For my audience, all the links will be in the show notes down below so that you can go ahead and support Sam and buy his book, because I just ordered it because I want to improve my communication skills, because I know.
Yeah, we have a sale going on. It's only $3.99 on Kindle, so it's a great deal.
There we go. I'm going to cancel that order and get the Kindle version now. I missed that because I just wanted to buy it right now. But Sam, thank you so much for being an amazing guest. And to my audience, thank you for listening. And remember always to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.